Hello everybody and welcome to a new video with myself, Yunitex, and today I'm going to be talking about one of my favourite JRPG series, Persona, but in particular Persona 5 Royal, because I'm just after finishing it. It took about 120 hours for me to get the Platinum trophy in it. And today, spoiler alert, I'm going to be talking about the entire experience of Persona 5 Royal and the comparison with the original game, the vanilla version, which is Persona 5. So, let's get cracking. So Persona 5 Royal is not a sequel, but it is an enhanced version of the original game, which came out worldwide in 2017, and Royal was released in 2020. This is something that they tend to do with the Persona games, where they have the vanilla game as it's known and then the enhanced version. And Persona in general is known for... my voice broke. And Persona in general is known for having absolutely banging soundtracks, and this one is no different. It is top tier stuff. So, what are the differences between the two games? Firstly, I have the Platinum in both of the games, so I did spend a lot of time with both of them. I'm going to be splitting this review into spoiler-heavy stuff and just general stuff that's well known. So first off, with the general stuff, Persona 5 Royal adds an extra semester and about between 25 to 30 extra hours into the game. Some of it is sprinkled throughout to introduce a new character, and there's a section at the end which adds an extra semester and an extra palace. If you haven't played the vanilla game, which is a much-loved game and I think it's phenomenally good, I would still recommend you play Royal first, because it is an enhanced version of the original game and has so much more content. Arguably not a better ending, but that's down the road. So Persona 5 Royal has added 2 new confidants, and they've also vastly improved one. Arguably there's kind of an extra character as well, but the 2 new confidants are the Counselor Persona and the Fate Persona, which is Kasumi and Maruki. They also did an overhaul on Akechi's arc and made it a far more impressive confidant, and I'm delighted that they made those changes. They also added in 2 new endings. You get the normal bad ending if you just don't meet the correct requirements, and there's another potential bad ending as well as the new ending. The battle system has been technically overhauled as well. They now have technical attacks that can be inflicted to create new status ailments and stuff like that. Other big changes include Showtime attack, which are basically over-the-top attacks where one teammate combines with another teammate and has this weird extra cutscene and then do a massive amount of damage. A nice new improvement as well is that they replenish bullets after every battle, which makes it much easier so you're not hoarding all your bullets. And overall it has made the battle system easier, though in one case it has made it harder. They've added 1 new area in Tokyo, Kichijoji. I apologize for my pronunciation. And this place is great because there's a lot of extra things that you can do there. There's a darts game, a pool game, you can go to a jazz club to increase all of your stats, as well as get exciting new skills. And through these you can actually raise your rank with your confidence as well. There's also temple that you can use to increase your SP, and it's a new way of opening new dialogue options as well. It's actually where Kasumi and Akechi tend to hang around if you want to increase their confidence. They've also added new songs to the soundtracks, so there is a new battle theme, which I was slightly jarred by initially, but then it got into my brain and now I can't stop. They have extra dungeon music as well, and overall the music is stellar. Actually, I forgot to mention, there is another character who's new, which is called Jose, who hangs around mementos and whizzes around. He's basically a little kid and he collects flowers, and he has an interesting storyline too. Which, by the way, speaking of mementos, a key thing that you could do in Persona 5 that you could cheese the Reaper battle. The Reaper battle is a really hard battle that you can get in mementos if you hang around and not do anything, but that's been overhauled unfortunately, and you just have to face the Reaper head on. From a Platinum perspective, they've overhauled the trophies to make it much easier to get the Platinum trophy in P5 Royal, because in the original game it took a lot of planning to get it, and while it was extremely satisfying, it was pretty tricky. P5 Royal, no major challenges, you can get it all in one playthrough. And a few other things that they added: they have an amazing new section where you can bring Justine and Caroline out on little trips, and their dialogue is very well written and very funny. Highly recommend you do all of it. Plus, by taking them out you get skill cards, which helps up your rank with them much easier than having to try and fuse specific skills. And there's also little extra things that you can do to increase your stats. You have crossword puzzles, which are quite useful, an extra conversation with confidence at the end of conversations to get you extra brownie points, and a new system of a fusion alarm, which basically allows you to create much more powerful personas, and so many other changes that, to be honest, if I did an entire list it would be the entire video, and it's already gone on a bit long. Alright, so spoilers. Don't go any further if you don't want to know anything else about the game. Alright, are you gone? Are you here? Let me know. Anyway, one key thing that they did with this game was obviously the new characters, and they play a massive role in the game, but a key element of that was the overhaul overhaul of Akechi's arc. Now, Akechi in this is technically one of the villains in the entire game, which you don't realize till you're well deep into it. In the original game, you're able to develop his confidence automatically, but in this case, you have to do a bit manually up to a certain point. What they did with his arc was really intriguing. I like the way that Joker was able to spend more personal time with Akechi and actually get to know him properly. And then I got very confused because at the end of the original game, Akechi dies. He just dies, that's just how it is. And it's a kind of a poignant moment. It's kind of like full circle where he was a villain and then he did. And it's kind of an emotional moment when he does die. But in Royal, there's a section in the new section where he's alive. And let me tell you, when it first happened, I was furious. But actually, as the new section progressed, I became way more accepting of it. And I'll tell you why. It's because they spent a lot of time and care into developing his story arc this time. In the original game, up to a point, Akechi was really nice and fake nice to you, it turns out. And at the end, the switch between him and villain, while it did make sense, it was to a certain point not as impactful to what they did in Royal. In Royal, he was nice up until a certain point, as usual. And then once you realize that he was a villain, and you realize that Akechi really has some serious issues, he does an overhaul of his character himself. And I think this is really fascinating because in your battles, in your subsequent battles with him as your party mate, and in your interactions with him, he is not nice anymore. He's angry, also genuinely does not care what you think. And I think this is a really cool change to his true villainous behavior. And yet with that, there is a major certain sense of justice about him. Despite having all these, what one would consider evil traits, there's a serious sense of justice that he holds dear to him, and he takes throughout the entire latter section of the game. Even to the point where he's willing to sacrifice himself because he doesn't care. He just doesn't care anymore. And some little things, I suppose, in one way that really stood out to me is in your battle sequence when he comes into your party and you spend more time with him. His lines and what he yells out when he's calling his persona or making points within the battle, they essentially border on insanity and nothing feels forced about it. I'm giving them huge props for changing Akechi's storyline because I think they did a fantastic job with that. Now, do I disagree with potentially seeing him at the end of the game as he walks by? Yes, because I think it's ridiculous that they would build him up and then he would sacrifice himself, but no, potentially he's okay. Don't do that. Just let him be dead. Other big changes obviously was the introduction of Kasumi, who we discover towards the end of the game is actually a character called Sumire, and Sumire is racked with guilt because she blames herself for her sister's death. This was an interesting change that I did not see coming, and I'm hoping that if I replay the game, it will give me hints that she is not Kasumi throughout the game, because I didn't pick up on that, but I often find that Persona tends to do that. I did find that her character was very good because she is introduced very cleverly in the casino palace at the very start of the game. And throughout the main vanilla game, you have extra scenes with her to build up your relationship to a certain point. Essentially, her character is really important for the rest of the plot because she ties into technically villain. It's hard to kind of put him into a category, but Maruki was a very interesting choice, and I'm actually quite happy that they did it. The reason why I say villain with a questionable tone is because he actually is not really a villain in terms of where Akechi is so clear-cut. Maruki wants what's best for the world, don't we all? What a noble cause. But he's not being realistic about it. And even when you're fighting him as a final boss, there is still a few moments where you feel like, maybe I should not be fighting this guy. He essentially wants everyone's happiness, which was the difference between himself and the rest of the palaces. And I thought that that was a really interesting flip on the idea as an extra palace. I think they did a great job of introducing him in the vanilla game and heavily suggesting that you get his confidence up before a certain period of time. But oftentimes I find if you're jumping into new JRPGs like this and you don't realize that there is technically a true ending, this can be a bit jarring. As a trophy hunter and a general completionist, I always try and max out everyone's confidence, but that's just kind of me. Because at a certain stage of the game, maybe you're 50, 60 hours into it and you haven't raised any of their confidence, it could be a bit frustrating to realize this a bit late into the game. While I did enjoy Maruki's story arc, I found it kind of a bit weak in comparison to other characters. I think that they did a much better job with Akechi's. But like I said, I do like the flip that they made. Similar though to the retraction that they did with Akechi, they also saved Maruki, which I don't know if that's a necessary thing to do. Often that takes away from the emotional punch of the game. But Persona 5 Royal is not without its fault. And one big thing that they made a terrible decision on was the Okumura boss battle. They overhauled the battle, which made it extremely difficult. so much so that I bumped it down to easy and I still could not beat him. The Kumara battle required you to defeat the enemies at the same time, but the problem is you're not still quite powered up enough to do that. And so the solution is absolutely bizarre. There are 8 phases in this battle, which makes it very irritating altogether, and because you have to go with the mechanics of beating them at the same time to a certain point, it makes it extremely difficult. So the solution, bizarrely, is to change it to the highest difficulty in the entire game, which is called Merciless. So Merciless does 3 times the amount of damage, but you also receive 3 times the amount of damage. And it really is one of the only sure ways of actually getting through this battle, which is bananas. And so it's really about patience, keeping Joker healed, and wondering why the hell that they made this decision. One other thing that Persona consistently gets wrong is the representation of LGBTQIA people, or in general issues to do with sexuality. They got it extremely wrong in Persona 4 with the character of Kanji, which, to be honest, when you go back and play it, it's quite uncomfortable and it does not age well. And then with Persona 5 Royal, which came out in 2020, just a few years ago, they make being gay a joke. Having that as the basis for your joke, it's just lazy. This is hopefully something that they're going to rectify down the line, because it was quite uncomfortable to watch at times. And I also do believe that they should introduce gay characters in general, because there are clear moments that you could choose to be more than bromance. Just a bit of representation is quite nice, you know? But overall, Persona 5 Royal is an excellent game. It has amazing combat and gameplay. It has a fantastic plot with a few tweaks. It has a soundtrack that is just so delicious with an amazing earthy bass. And it's just one of those games that you have to play if you're a fan of JRPGs. It's top tier. So let me know, have you played Persona 5 or Persona 5 Royal? And what did you think about it? Are you a fan of the games in general? I'm off to play its sequel, which is called P5 Strikers, and hopefully get the platinum in that. Take care, everyone, and see you soon.